Ever stared at a blank page until your eyes started to blur? Maybe you've sat behind a keyboard, cursor blinking, mocking you with its steady, rhythmic pulse, waiting for code that just won't come. Or perhaps you've stood in the middle of a craft store, basket in hand, paralyzed by the pressure to plan the perfect birthday party, telling yourself, "I'm just not the creative type." That feeling, that heavy, sinking sensation that the well has run dry, is something we all know. It's the imposter syndrome whispering that you don't belong here. It's the fear that the magic was a one-time accident.
Rick Rubin, the legendary producer behind everyone from the Beastie Boys to Johnny Cash, describes this phenomenon in The Creative Act not as a lack of talent, but as a signal interference. Imagine you are a high-end radio receiver. The music, the ideas, the inspiration, what Rubin calls the source, is always broadcasting. It never stops. It is a constant stream of data flowing through the ether like Wi-Fi signals in a coffee shop. But right now, you're just getting static, white noise, hiss. It's frustrating. It feels personal. But Rubin argues that this static isn't a dead end. It's just a calibration error. You aren't broken. Your antenna just needs a little tuning.
This isn't just about writing a hit song or painting a masterpiece. Whether you are a software engineer trying to solve a bug in Silicon Valley, a parent in the suburbs trying to reinvent Tuesday night dinner, or a writer in a Brooklyn apartment staring at that blank page, the mechanism is exactly the same. We are all creators. It is, as Rubin puts it, our birthright. In this first segment, we're going to look at how to stop blaming yourself for the static and start turning the dial to find the signal again.
So, how do we actually turn that dial? How do we cut through the static? It starts with where you are right now. Welcome to The Last Read, books for your ears, wisdom for your life. Before we go any further into the ether, take a second to hit that subscribe button. Unlock your potential with us, week after week. Today, we are opening the pages of The Creative Act, A Way of Being. Now, if you picked this book up looking for a technical manual or a step-by-step guide on how to mix a platinum record, you might be confused. Rubin doesn't talk about EQ settings or chord progressions. He hints at something else entirely.
We are conditioned to think that the secret to great art, or great work of any kind, is simply working harder, grinding, learning more complex techniques. But Rubin flips the script. He suggests the secret is actually much simpler and far more spiritual. It is about awareness. It is, as the title suggests, a way of being in the world. It's about creating a space where the ideas can land. Most people miss this because they are too busy trying to force the door open instead of realizing it opens inwards. Rubin argues that the object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. If you want to hold this wisdom in your hands, the link to buy the book is right there in the description. But to understand why this spiritual approach actually works and isn't just metaphysical fluff, you have to understand the man behind the message, a man who looks less like a music executive and more like a barefoot mystic who just wandered out of a cave. To understand The Creative Act, you first have to understand the character who wrote it. Because if you saw Rick Rubin walking down the street in Malibu, you probably wouldn't guess he's one of the most successful music producers in history. You'd probably think he was a guru or a mystic who just wandered out of a cave to grab a green juice. He's famous for his long flowing white beard, his wild unkempt hair, and his distinct preference for being barefoot in the studio. He looks less like a record executive and more like a Zen monk. Yet this is the man who shaped the careers of massive cultural icons. We're talking about the raw power of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, the soulful depth of Adele, the swagger of Jay-Z, and the heartbreaking resurrection of Johnny Cash's final years.
But here is the paradox, and it's a big one. Rick Rubin doesn't play a single instrument. He has openly admitted he has no idea how to work a mixing board. In a world obsessed with technical mastery, he has, technically speaking, almost none. He once told a journalist, "I have no technical ability, and I know nothing about music." So, what exactly does he do? Why do the world's biggest artists trust him with their most vulnerable work? He listens.
Rubin famously calls himself a reducer rather than a producer. He strips away the clutter, the ego, the unnecessary production tricks, until only the honest, raw essence of the song remains. He doesn't add layers, he removes the interference. He gets out of the way so the art can come through. His authority doesn't come from what he can do with his hands, but from how he perceives with his mind. He is a master of taste, of awareness, of simply knowing when something feels true. And that is exactly why The Creative Act is such a vital book. It's not a manual on how to paint or write or mix a beat. It's a manual on how to see and how to listen. Which leads us to his first and perhaps most important mental model, one that might completely change how you see your own life.
Creativity is not a profession. It is a way of being. That is the first and perhaps the most difficult shift Rubin asks us to make. We live in a culture that loves to gatekeep the title of artist. We reserve that word for the painters in Soho lofts, or the songwriters in Nashville, or the directors in Hollywood. We treat creativity like a rare ability that you either have or you don't. But Rubin dismantles this immediately. He writes, "Creativity is not a rare ability. It is not difficult to access. Creativity is a fundamental aspect of being human." He argues that to create is simply to bring something into existence that wasn't there before. And when you look at it through that lens, you realize you are creating all day long. It's in the mundane, the micro decisions that define your daily existence.
Think about how you fold your clothes. You might have a specific way you fold your t-shirts so they fit perfectly in the drawer. That is an act of design. Or look at your phone. The specific logic you use to arrange your apps so your thumb hits the most important ones first. That is a user experience choice. Rubin even mentions the drive to work. If you decide to take a new route home to avoid a traffic jam on the interstate, that is creative problem solving. You are improvising a new path through the world. Consider a parent standing in the kitchen at 6 a.m., staring at a lunchbox. They need to convince a stubborn toddler to eat something healthy, so they cut the sandwich into the shape of a dinosaur, or they arrange the apple slices into a smiley face.
In that moment, that parent is not just making lunch. They are an artist. They are solving a problem by bringing something new and visually engaging into reality. To be human is to be creative. It isn't about whether you can draw or sing. It is about how you choose to participate in the unfolding of your life. It is about simply knowing when something feels true. But this leads us to a deeper, slightly more mysterious question. If we are all creators, where exactly do these ideas come from? When you have that sudden impulse to take the back roads, or that sudden flash of inspiration to cut the sandwich into a star, what put that thought in your head? Rubin suggests that we aren't exactly generating these ideas from scratch. He hints that perhaps we aren't the source at all. We might just be the antenna.
This is one of Rubin's most mystical, yet strangely practical ideas, the concept of the source. He suggests that ideas are not something we generate inside our brains like a factory producing widgets. Instead, ideas are more like a radio signal. They are already out there, floating in the ether, constantly broadcasting. Rubin writes, "The source is out there, a wisdom surrounding us, an inexhaustible offering that is always available." Think of it like a radio tuner. The music is always in the air. Right now, in the room you are sitting in, there are radio waves carrying jazz, pop, news, and static. You can't hear them, not because they aren't there, but because you aren't tuned to their frequency.
This flips the script on how we view our role as creators. We are not the generators of the signal. We are the vessel. We are the antenna. Rubin argues that when you have a great idea, it didn't come from you. It came through you. You were simply open enough and quiet enough to receive it. He even notes that if you have a great idea and you don't act on it, it's not uncommon to see someone else release that exact same idea 6 months later. Not because they stole it, but because that idea was in the air, looking for a willing antenna. And since you didn't channel it, it found someone else who would. This perspective is incredibly liberating, especially when we talk about the dreaded creative block. We often think of writer's block or artist's block as being empty. We stare at the blank page and think, I have nothing inside me. But under Rubin's model, the problem isn't emptiness. The problem is interference.
Your antenna is jammed. Maybe it's jammed by self-doubt, or the pressure to make money, or the noise of your daily commute. The signal is still there. The source hasn't stopped broadcasting, but your internal static is so loud that you can't hear the music playing underneath it. So, if the work of the artist isn't about brute forcing ideas into existence, what is it? It's about maintenance. It's about keeping your antenna polished and your dial spinning, waiting for a signal to come through clearly. And this brings us to the practical side of things. If we are just antennas waiting for a transmission, what are we supposed to do while we wait? How do we actually tune the dial? Rubin calls this phase gathering seeds.
Rubin calls this phase gathering seeds. It is the practical application of being an antenna. If the signal is always there, your job is simply to notice it. This phase is entirely about awareness. It's about walking through your life with wide eyes, restoring that childlike perception where everything is new and nothing is utilitarian. Usually, we walk down the street and we see a building or a tree or a car. We label things instantly so we can ignore them and get on with our day. But in the gathering seeds phase, you stop labeling. You start really looking. You might be sitting in a coffee shop, and instead of checking your phone, you listen to the cadence of a conversation at the table next to you. You don't need to know what they are saying, just hear the rhythm of the speech. Or you notice the texture of an old brick wall, the way the mortar is chipped in a specific pattern, or a strange shadow stretching across the sidewalk in the late afternoon light. These are the seeds. Rubin emphasizes that you must collect these bits of life without judgment. This is crucial. In this phase, we are not critics. We are hoarders. If you see something that sparks even a tiny bit of interest, you grab it. You write it down. You record a voice note. You take a picture. You don't ask, is this good? Or how does this fit into my project? You just say, that's interesting, and you put it in the bag. Rubin says that volume does not equal value. A massive, thunderous idea might turn out to be a dead end, while a tiny, quiet observation, something you almost didn't write down because it seemed so trivial, could be the seed that grows into your greatest work. The goal here is simply to collect as many dots as possible, because you cannot connect the dots if you haven't gathered them first. You are filling your reservoir, so that when you eventually sit down to create, you aren't trying to draw water from a dry well. But there is a reason we don't stay in this phase forever. Eventually, you have to take one of those seeds and try to plant it. You have to try to make it grow. And the moment you move from collecting to creating, the moment you try to do something with what you found, a very specific, very loud enemy tends to show up. The enemy is resistance. It's perfectionism. It's that nagging internal voice that waits until you're vulnerable, right when you pick up the pen or the paintbrush, to whisper, "Who do you think you are?" Rubin suggests that this voice isn't just an annoyance, it's actually a sign that you're doing something real. If you weren't pushing into the unknown, the voice wouldn't bother showing up. But here is where people get stuck. They think they need to defeat the voice. They think they need to be 100% confident before they can work. Rubin flips this. He says that the goal isn't to attain perfection or even unwavering confidence. The goal is simply to lower the stakes.
When you tell yourself, "This has to be my masterpiece," you freeze. You give the enemy all the power. But if you tell yourself, "This is just an experiment," or "I'm just playing around to see what happens," the fear loses its grip. Think of it like driving a car. You are in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, heading toward your creative destination. Doubt and fear are passengers in the back seat. Now you can't kick them out. They're part of the trip. They're going to chatter, they're going to complain, and they're going to scream that you're going the wrong way. Rubin's advice is essentially this: let them talk. Acknowledge they are there. You can even say, "I hear you."
But, and this is the rule, they are never, ever allowed to touch the steering wheel. You keep driving. You treat the work as a small, manageable experiment rather than a career-defining moment. You focus on the process of driving, not the anxiety of the passengers. However, once you manage to keep that car on the road and you start making progress, another temptation arises. You might start looking out the window at the other cars. You might start wondering if they like the way you're driving. And that leads us to one of the most controversial and essential parts of Rubin's philosophy: who you should actually be driving for.
But looking out that window, worrying about the other drivers, that's where things get dangerous. Because if you start steering your car based on where they are going or where you think they want you to go, you're going to crash. Or maybe worse, you'll just end up in a traffic jam with everyone else, going nowhere special. This brings us to one of the most liberating yet terrifying concepts in the book: the audience of one. Rubin is incredibly blunt about this. He says, essentially, that the audience comes last. In fact, he warns that if you ever find yourself thinking, "I don't really like this, but I think the market will," or "This isn't for me, but it's what's popular right now," you have left the realm of art entirely. You've entered the business of commerce. And there is no bright line between the two, but the intention is different. See, the trap is believing that if you try to please everyone, you'll be successful. But we all know the old adage, if you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. You get something watered down, something safe.
Rubin flips this on its head. He argues that the only way to make something that truly resonates with other people is to make it specific and authentic to you. Think of it like a chef in a kitchen. Imagine a chef who is obsessed with focus groups. Before he even turns on the stove, he surveys 100 people to ask what they want for dinner. 30% say chicken, 20% say pasta, 10% want spicy, 40% want mild. If that chef tries to cook a meal that satisfies all those data points, what do you get? You get a lukewarm, bland, confused plate of food that nobody actually loves. It's edible, sure, but it has no soul. Now, compare that to the chef who cooks the meal they are dying to eat. They use the spices they love. They roast the vegetables exactly how they like them. They aren't thinking about the customer. They are thinking about the flavor.
Paradoxically, that is the meal people line up around the block for, because it has a point of view, it's specific, and because it's specific, it becomes universal. Rubin often refers to the work as a diary entry. He says, "Everything I make is a diary entry." I love that framing because it takes all the pressure off. You can't tell me my diary entry is wrong. You can't tell me it's bad. It's just a record of who I was and what I loved at that specific moment in time. If you do that honestly, you can't fail. The success is in the making, not the selling. So, you've silenced the passengers in the back seat. You've stopped looking out the window at the other cars. You are driving for an audience of one, yourself. You've got a trunk full of ideas that are raw, authentic, and completely yours. But raw isn't always ready. Just because you've packed everything you love into the car doesn't mean you can travel efficiently. Sometimes, to really get where you're going, you have to pull over, open that trunk, and start throwing things out. It's what Rubin calls the craft phase, and it requires a completely different mindset than the one you just used to fill that trunk. Up until now, you've been the artist. The artist is generous, open, wild, saying yes to every impulse. But to turn those raw impulses into art, you have to switch hats. You have to become the editor. And the editor is Ruthless. Rubin is famous for this reductionist approach. There are stories of him in the studio where he doesn't add a single thing to a track. He just keeps taking elements away until the song actually starts to breathe. He strips it back to the absolute essence, maybe just a voice and a guitar, or a beat and a bass line. He believes that perfection isn't achieved when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away.
Think of it like packing a suitcase for a long trip. When you first start packing, you lay out everything you think you might need. You've got 5 pairs of shoes, books you won't read, gadgets you won't use. It's a pile of just in case. But if you try to drag that heavy bag through the airport, you're going to be miserable. You won't be able to move. So what do? You look at that pile and you remove half of it. You keep only what is essential for the journey. That is the craft phase. It's looking at that trunk full of wild, raw ideas and asking, does this line actually serve the song? Does this chapter move the story forward? Is this color necessary for the painting?
If the answer is no, it has to go, even if you love it, especially if you love it, but it doesn't fit. This part can be painful. You might feel like you're losing parts of the work. But Rubin insists that by stripping away the non-essential, you aren't making the work smaller, you are making it more potent. You are engaging the audience's imagination because you aren't doing all the work for them. You're leaving space. And once you have stripped it down to its purest form, once the suitcase is light and the engine is humming perfectly, you realize something terrifying. You're done. And being done means you have to face the hardest part of the entire process. You have to open the door and let it out.
It is the moment of release. And this is where so many of us freeze. We hold on to the work. We tinker. We protect it. We worry about what the world will say. But Rubin is very clear on this point. Once the work is done, it is no longer yours. Holding on to it doesn't just keep the work from finding its audience. It actually blocks the mechanism of creativity itself. Rubin describes creativity as a flow, a river that moves through us. If you dam the river by hoarding your ideas or refusing to let a project go, the fresh water cannot come in. The flow stops. You stagnate.
So you must release it. You have to publish the post, upload the song, hang the canvas. Not for the accolades. Rubin says success occurs in the privacy of the soul, the moment you decide it is finished. Everything after that is just market conditions, variables beyond your control. And here is the beautiful part. The second you let it go, the very moment you push that work out into the world, you are free. You return to the beginning. You stop being the craftsman. You stop being the editor, and you become the antenna again. You go back to the source. You go back to noticing. You make space for the next signal to come through.
Because ultimately, the creative act isn't just about making things. It is, as the title suggests, a way of being. It's about walking through the world with your eyes open, ready to receive the next transmission, and having the courage to let it flow through you. That brings us to the end of our journey through this book. This has been The Last Read. If you want to keep your antenna tuned and catch the next signal with us, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you want to dive deeper into Rubin's philosophy, and I highly suggest you do, check the link in the description to pick up a copy of the book for yourself. Keep listening. We'll see you next time.